Hello, this is Wendy Rosie Isbell talking about the Christchurch flower essences, and this talk is about the spring flowers. I've talked earlier about trends with the spring flowers to do with opening and unfolding, flowers for specific situations, indications for personal growth, parallels with bark flowers, and flower essences for spiritual growth. This time I'm talking about the individual flower essences themselves. So at the start, there's anemone and azalea, which are to do with opening and unfolding. The anemone is for opening and unfolding of the individual's full potential in the light of one's soul. And if you look at the anemone, it's a little flower that closes up at night, and when the sun comes out, it opens up and looks at the sun and then closes down at the end of the day. The azalea is for shyness or diffidence in expressing one's own true worth or value, to help in unfolding and expressing the wholeness of who one really is. And the azalea flower is a beautiful, rather transparent flower that comes out in late spring, and it has a beautiful scent, and it just is there in its own worth and value. The bluebell is for transforming a sense of sadness and being weighed down by past experiences so that one can become centered and clear in one's own current surroundings. If you look at the bluebell flower, it looks like shrugged shoulders with a sense of giving up. But the other side of this is to become centered and clear and to work through your sadness. The camellias are on the whole about fear of changing and fear of making the necessary changes for further development. So the double camellia is to transform feelings of apprehension and fear about changes into a sense of divine anticipation about opportunities for growth and development. This camellia was called Anticipation, and it was outside the front door of a spiritual teacher I used to visit. And I used to go in there with some apprehension, maybe, and anticipation about what I'd learn about myself and what I'd have to look at, and also the opportunities that I was about to have with the session with him. The pink camellia is for fear about settling into a comfortable lifestyle so that one can feel free to grow and play without being constricted by other people's definitions and expectations. The name of this camellia was Brian, and it always makes me think of the movie The Life of Brian by the Monty Python group. The red camellia is for reluctance to acknowledge one's true worth and claim one's sovereignty, to transform the fear of being a master in one's own right. The name of this camellia was Sovereign, and it's about claiming your sovereignty, standing your ground, and being there. The white camellia was for reluctance and fear to make the necessary changes to produce a more orderly lifestyle, so that one can have a framework for evolving and unfolding one's true self. And if you look at this camellia, it's very orderly, layered white camellia, very organised and together. The cherry blossom is to help lift a cloud or weight from one's aura, to restore calm and a quiet joy in the processes and progressions of life. And if you look at the photos, there's an avenue of cherry blossoms along Harper's Avenue in Christchurch. It's the most beautiful sight when it comes out. On one side is Hagley Park, on the other side is a road that's frequently travelled upon, and it's just inspiring to be there. And my thought about this was how you feel when you're walking along this avenue and the inspiration and upliftment that you get with that. The clematis is for the ability to flourish in the present without needing a structure or formal context, so that one can express oneself fully in the present. And if you look at the camellia, there's a vine that climbs up a tree or a fence, and the flowers are just there, supported by whatever else is there, but they're just there in the present, and that, I think, is the essence of the camellia. The crabapple is for cleansing of a sense of shame and unworthiness, often showing as a veneer of irritability and resentment. to enable one to step aside from one's previous bitterness and enjoy one's true worth. So this has some analogies with the bark flower essence crabapple, but also thinking about the crabapple itself and the bitter fruit that it represents, and also the crab, how it moves sideways to shift to go to a new place. The daffodils are for different aspects of bringing energy, joy and enthusiasm into one's life. The Actaea daffodil is for a tendency to present a false and self-indulgent persona to the world so that one can become more compassionate and gentle with oneself and so act with more clarity, transparency and attunement. The King Alfred daffodil is for a lack of energy and enthusiasm in one's life to produce an uplifting and elevating vibration so that one can have more enjoyment, verve and creativity in the various aspects of one's life. To me, the King Alfred daffodil is the essence of spring, and once spring blooms, I buy bunches of them and give them to all my friends and family and keep them in the house for as long as they're available. The colour scheme from the Christchurch Flower Essence webpage is based on the King Alfred daffodil. And the white daffodil is for a tendency towards impatience and intolerance, to produce a broadening of one's conscious experience of life so that one's energy and enthusiasm can be used for inspiring purposes. So as you can see, they're to do with bringing energy, joy, enthusiasm to your life, to bringing the upliftment that spring gives you. Further on in the spring kits, the Daphne is to overcome or prevent a degree of weariness during constant or long-term endeavours and allow a selfless determination in discharging one's responsibilities while still allowing an all-round balance in the rest of one's life activities. This is what the Daphne represents to me, but also I had a friend named Daphne who had a number of very heavy commitments in her life and who discharged all of them with great cheerfulness and joyfulness, and really was an inspiration to how we can go about these difficult patches in our life. The early chair is to help with confusion and darkness, to bring a fresh sense of hope and cheer and a glimmer of joy in the potential and promise of the future. And indeed, when early chair comes out, it's beautiful, it's small, and it smells beautiful, and it does bring some hope and cheerfulness in spring. The freesia is for a sense of heaviness and weight in one's life so that one can experience an even and smooth sense of the delicacy and fineness of life experiences. And the freesia is a delicate flower, a fine flower, and with a beautiful scent. The gentian is for an awkwardness, uncertainty and diffidence in relating to others, to transform and transmute the depths of one's personality and lead to a sense of connectedness to all of life. And I think of this like the gentian, the violet flame, the seventh ray, to do with transmutation and growth. The grape hyacinth and hyacinth represent destructive relationships as seen from both the male and female viewpoints. So the grape hyacinth is for when there has been an abuse of one's power, energy and emotions, to allow a glorifying and uplifting transformation so that one can live a harmonious and upright life. And the hyacinth for when one has allowed oneself to be used or abused for a false sense of security, develop a strengthening of one's integrity so that one can live a life of grace, openness and gentleness. And if you look at the hyacinths, they're beautiful flowers, they're rather delicate, they tend to fall over sideways a bit with their own weight, and they smell divine. The japonica is for vigility in presenting oneself to the outside world and a tendency to change to fit in with others, allows an improvement in the ability to acknowledge one's true beauty and to present oneself in a straightforward and honest manner. The magnolias have to do with developing your feminine side and to opening your intuition. The magnolia is for a bashfulness about acknowledging one's femininity, to develop a grandness and flourishing of one's external beauty with an acceptance and acknowledgement of one's inner depths. I love this image and I use it on the label for my homeopathic remedies. The star magnolia is for when there are blockages to sensitivity and receptivity, to allow an opening of intuition and lead to a finer attunement with the higher realms and the dimensions of light. To me, this has a shape of the star, and it is for receiving energy and guidance from the stars and star beings. The magnolia white, the magnolia denudata, is for an awkwardness in adolescence, to allow a rounded emergence of womanhood and a delicate flowering of femininity. The maple is for when one is subject to swinging moods and emotions, so that one may pull a balance into the various aspects of one's being and provide a framework for positive emotions and behaviour. And the image of the maple shows the maple flower with all these tendrils that hang down in a beautiful colour and a beautiful formation, but can represent swinging moods and emotions, and how they can be brought into line to produce positivity. The pansy is for a tendency for tiredness or tiredness after meditation. It stimulates immunity and strengthens the body and mind, leading to a rested and balanced energy state. And in other flower essence situations, pansies are used to help with viral illnesses and immunity and tiredness, again, tiredness after meditation. The pansy joker is similar for sadness and weariness related to emotional issues, often showing as ill humour, moroseness or a black wit, allows one to face sensitive issues, leading to a more relaxed and constructive form of behaviour. So the face on the joker pansy is the joker, but it also allows one to face what needs to be faced up to. The plum is another one that can be used for specific situations. I see it as being used with the Daphne as being for long endeavours that go on and require some patience and fortitude. So the plum is for when one is disheartened or discouraged after seemingly futile effort, to give enthusiasm to continue in a light and joyful manner and eventually claim the fruit of one's endeavours. And now about the polyanthus and primrose. The polyanthus is for when one wishes to have more vision, clarity and light in one's life, to strengthen the connection to one's core so that one can radiate light with precision and intensity. And if you look at the photo, there's a little core, golden core in the middle of the flower, and outside this are arranged the petals. The primrose is for those who are overwhelmed by being in a confused and blurred environment, who cope by shutting themselves out and developing a negative veneer, to focus on allowing one's own colours to emerge and developing one's true image so that one can add one's own imprint to the processes of life. This was a flower that I never did manage to get into focus, and the indications have come through partly in photographic jargon. Blurred, shutter, negative veneer, developing colours, true image and imprint. So this was rather a funny situation when the indications for this one came through. The rhododendrons have to do with presenting yourself in the three ages of man: youth, adulthood and old age. The pink rhododendron is for shyness and presenting oneself to others during adolescence, to allow a new social role to emerge and so present oneself in one's best light with a sense of clarity and delicacy. And the image I have for that is a teenage girl in a gingham dress, a pink gingham dress, just coming out into adolescence and finding herself. The red rhododendron is to help with an ambivalence about how to present oneself honestly in an adult setting, to enable one to acknowledge the power of sensitivity and openness and thus be compatible within a group while still presenting one's own individuality. And this is a mature woman presenting herself, being open but still herself, as in the image. The wine rhododendron is to help establish a positive social role in later life so that one can step aside from the bustle of activity and allow a natural radiance and serenity to emerge, bridging the gap between the old and the new. So this rhododendron was one of the ponticum rhododendrons, which is related to bridging. The snowflake is a flower that comes out almost before spring has begun, sometimes coming through the snow and being a herald, a harbinger of spring. So this is for situations of alienation in a harsh environment to enable one to rise above one's limitations and present a clear and courageous beauty to the world. The soleil d'or is another one of the early spring flowers that again brings hope and cheer. This is to help with states of despair and the dark night of the soul, to bring a fresh sense of hope and joy and a glow of golden warmth and emerging strength. So the soleil d'or is the sun of gold. And the Star of Bethlehem, again related to the Bach flowers, but this is for when one is overwhelmed by life experiences, allowing an angelic and ethereal assistance, leading to an unexplainable feeling of peace, well-being and great joy. And when I was working on this, I very much had the Star of Bethlehem and the birth of Jesus in mind, and this was the image for the star leading us onwards into peace and well-being and joy. Later in the spring flowers, there are flowers to do with more spiritual growth, and one of these is the tulip, for the process of opening one's channel upwards to assist in spinning light from one's core to the higher spaces to build a connection to finer awareness. And this has to do with some of the meditation processes of opening your channel upwards and building the antakarana. The viburnum is for when one would feel inept and isolated in a group situation, to allow an all-round and balanced personal development so that one can fit harmoniously into one's social circle and work for the overall good of the group. So the flowers of the viburnum are arranged into spheres to do with group situations, fitting in and balancing, but still being present as yourself. And the violet, related to the shrinking violet, this is for a tendency to be shy, to shrink back to protect one's individual sense of self, to transmute and transform these delicate and retiring tendencies and develop a warmth, trust and openness in personal and group situations. Now the last few of these spring flowery essences. The weeping prunus is for women in the midlife who are irritable and depressed, easily offended and indifferent to their family and friends, to produce a softening of attitudes and restore a delicate sense of femininity, allowing a willingness to nurture and be nurtured, and discovering true fulfillment of womanhood. The image I'm always given for the weeping prunus is that of a weeping prunus, a weeping cherry blossom, that was outside the front gates of the old Christchurch Women's Hospital when I was working there as a house surgeon. That one had a great big tumour in the middle of the trunk where it had grown and healed itself. And near there sat the women who were in having their hysterectomies, who were very, very angry with themselves and their husbands and everyone. And they sat out there and smoked and argued and complained. And I thought that the weeping prunus was trying to heal this in some way, to heal them so that they can become more whole in their feminineness. And this is the image I've had for the weeping prunus flower essence. The winter rose, which I relate to myself because Wendy Rose, the winter rose, this is for inner peace so that one can stay in one's own experience and retain one's identity and integrity without being affected by others, to help one remain in one's own energy flow and maintain an inner sense of purpose, power, focus and peace. And I use this as my profile picture on Facebook. And finally, the yellow hoop petticoat, which is coming into more of the spiritual growth flower essences. This is for when the next stage of growth is to transmit light and radiance out into the world to awaken others. It helps one to become a beacon with the ability to shift and heal others and send out radiance to bring everything around to a higher level. So this has to do with some of the meditation teaching of radiance transmitting light. And my newsletter I call The Beacon. So that's what we all as healers and practitioners would like to be, a beacon to help with others.